Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and today we're discussing the 5 key tips to make sure that you are prepared for the next disaster. So just like we've seen with Hurricane Helene in North Carolina and the wildfires that are currently raging in California near Los Angeles, sometimes evacuation is a must, and there's absolutely no other option. You have to get out of there. The force of nature that's coming your way is unstoppable. Number 1 on our list of things to have ready to be prepared for is having your vehicle well maintained. That means everything. That means not bald tires. That means having your oil changed regularly, having a battery that actually functions and you don't have to jump start it every time you try to get the thing, having the windshield wipers working properly, because if it's a hurricane, if it's a huge amount of rainfall and your windshield wipers aren't working, you could be crashed on the side of the road somewhere simply because you couldn't see for neglecting such a simple, inexpensive thing such as windshield wipers. You're crashed on the side of the road and now you're in the eye of the hurricane. So having basic vehicle maintenance strategies, just staying on top of this stuff and not letting it get too far behind is going to be crucial. I know how it is. I've done this personally. I know the list of things to do, all the lights in the vehicle start coming on one at a time, and you neglect one, and then you neglect another, and then you just, I don't want to feel like worrying about the next one. And then suddenly every light that's possible on the dash of your car with your bald tires and windshield wipers that are wore out, you've got all these things compiled and it's too overwhelming. And all you can really do is go get a new vehicle. If that's your situation, then yes, I highly suggest that you save up your money and you invest in a new vehicle if the funds allow. However, if they don't, it's generally speaking less expensive to maintain a vehicle and keep that thing operational as long as you stay on top of it. If something breaks, go ahead and get it fixed immediately. If you could fix it yourself, I highly recommend that, but make sure you're getting somebody that's qualified, someone that you trust, which I know is easier said than done. So preferably someone in the community. Like, I've got a guy, one of my really good friends is a really good mechanic, and I go to him. He's my first stop. If something goes wrong with my vehicle and I don't know what to do, I'm at a loss for how to fix it, he's my first stop and he generally can help me out. Number 2 on our list is going to be a supplies checklist. Having your bags packed, literally and metaphorically. Having everything in your mind already planned out, having a plan set aside for what items you need to bring. So let's say the evacuation order comes for my area. Hopefully I saw it coming far enough in advance and I've got a little bit of time, but you can't count on that. Maybe there's not a whole lot of time and you need to be ready in a hurry. So having a mental checklist of things that need to be loaded up in the back of the truck or the trunk or whatever it is vehicle that you have, having that mental checklist is going to be really, really important. Now, what needs to be on that mental checklist? I think each person in your family, in your crew that lives with you, should have a bag packed. So what needs to go in this go bag, this bug out bag? Basic checklist that I go through in my mind whenever I'm packing any kind of bag is going to be food, fire, water, and shelter. If I can check those 4 boxes right there, that's the basic life-sustaining stuff right there. Food, fire, water, and shelter. If I can accomplish those 4 things, I'm probably going to live through whatever the ordeal is that I'm in. Now, there's a lot of other things that need to be included in a pack that you might, if you have the forethought and the time to get it packed ahead of time, such as prescription medications or an extra pair of glasses if you're blind without them. A lot of other things that can go in this pack, communications like a radio, a lot of other things that could go in there, and that's kind of up to you to decide what you may or may not need. But having the basics is going to be super important. Let's say the warning's coming my way, there's a forest fire heading my way, which has happened. Several years back, about 5, maybe 6 years ago, we had a lot of big fires near us. And luckily, didn't come close enough where we had to evacuate, but it very, very much could have been that situation. What would I have wanted thrown into my truck? Well, I'd make sure everybody throws their pack in there, their bag with the food, fire, water, and shelter, extra clothing, a spare set of clothing perhaps. And then I would just start throwing food, water, everything that I can think of, batteries. I would just start piling the back of my truck full of everything and anything that I can think of in a hurry, and I would sort through it later. Everyone's got their essentials in their bag, and then everything else is just a bonus if I've got time to throw it in there. So that's what I would highly suggest, is you have some planning. You start making some checklists and you start developing a bag that you can have packed and ready to go for everyone in your family. I think everyone, regardless of age, should have their own individual bag that has some of the things that they need and perhaps just some of the things that they want. Location, that's number 3 on our list. Where the heck are you gonna go when this disaster strikes? Don't plan on just running off to a hotel somewhere, because we've often seen in these disaster areas, let's take Florida hurricanes, for example, every single hotel room is booked solid along these highways that are on these exit routes out of Florida. So don't plan on that. Don't plan on finding a hotel room. Hopefully, if you've got the funds, you've got the resources, you've got a spare home somewhere. You've got a vacation home up in the mountains that you can retreat to that's fully stocked. But let's be real, not everybody has the resources, including me. Not everybody has that option. So having family nearby, family that you can go off to and you've discussed with them ahead of time, say, hey, Granny, this storm looks bad, this fire's coming our way, we're gonna head your way. Cool with that? And Granny's probably gonna be okay with it. Now let's say, like for example, when I lived in Southern California, where all these fires are going on right now, I didn't have any family there, not one. I didn't have a single family member that side of the Mississippi. I was heavily reliant upon friends for all the things that you would normally count on family for. But I invested time and energy into these people ahead of time, and that allowed them to trust me. You can't just show up at some Joe Blow's house that you met one time at one event and expect them to take in your family. Maybe they're generous enough to do so, but chances are it's going to be unlikely. So building relationships with people in your community, in your local area, and then your not so local area is going to be really, really important. But this takes time, this takes energy in order for trust to be gained on both sides, mutual trust. Be a good guest. If you show up at someone's home, family or not, be prepared. Like we talked about before, bring the supplies necessary that you think you might need. Bring the toilet paper, bring the spare clothes, bring firewood, bring whatever it is that you think that you might need to be a good guest, so you're not just eating into their supplies because maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the ability because of the weather or whatever to go out and replenish whatever it is that you're eating through really fast, literally eating through perhaps. So bring food, bring supplies so you can be a good guest. Number 4 on our list is going to be your route. What route have you picked out, have you selected to get to this location, your evacuation route? That's going to be really important. Plan this out ahead of time because these major highways perhaps could get really clogged up with traffic. You don't want to be in the midst of all that when the fire's coming your way. If you're one of the last-minute evacuees that often try to flee these areas, like Florida hurricanes, for example, you're going to get stuck in traffic if you're on one of these major highways. So what I would suggest is that you have a primary, an alternate, and then a tertiary contingent route planned to go to this location that you've pre-selected. So the primary route might be the fastest, the most used, the most likely, the one that you take all the time to get to this whatever location that you're going to. The alternate is the back roads, a little bit out of the way. Perhaps it might take you a little bit longer to get there, but there's going to be less traffic, less crowd, less mess. Now let's talk about that tertiary route, the third way of getting to your location. This could be way off the beaten path and could completely circumvent the entire troubled area, and it's way out of the way, but it is perhaps the way, the only way to get to where you are going. So having at least 3 routes planned out, evacuation routes in your area, and having a paper map, an actual paper map, because if communications should fail, cell phone towers should be down, GPS isn't working, all of these things can fail and will fail oftentimes in disaster areas, as we have seen in the Hurricane Helene effort. All these things were down. You weren't going to GPS, you weren't going to Google Maps your way to and from. You needed to be looking at an actual map. Pre-downloaded maps of the area, like a Gaia GPS app, those are really, really handy, and they still seem to work pretty well. But having an actual paper map of your area with your routes highlighted is going to be really, really important. And now that's a good segue into our final point, our 5th and final point here, and that is going to be communications. A way to gain information into what is going on in the world around you. Because oftentimes when the power goes out, the lights go out, everything gets dark, and you are literally and figuratively in the dark. And you won't know what's going on. You won't know what the safe direction is to get out of town. You won't know. And having a way to get some basic information like a radio would be really, really helpful and could potentially save your life and the lives of your loved ones. So having a radio with the pre-programmed radio stations, the emergency broadcast system, so you can get some information in your area on what's going on is going to be really important. Having a way to charge up your cell phone, having backup battery banks and stuff like that, so you can juice up these devices and enable yourself to get some information to what's going on. And finally, on that same point, is just heed the warnings. I've discussed this in previous videos. Pay attention to those warnings. If there's a flash flood warning in your area, heed those warnings. Pay attention to them and do the basic prep work beforehand. It doesn't take a lot, just the basic prep beforehand so you can ensure your family's safety, because as we have seen in these fires and in these floods and the hurricanes, we have seen that these things can happen really, really fast. And if you don't heed those warnings, you might be behind the curve, and that is, no one wants to be there. So guys, I hope you have found these 5 tips to be helpful in some form or fashion. Please leave a comment in the comment section if I've missed anything, if I've left out any crucial details of disaster preparedness and evacuation tips and techniques. Leave those in the comment section. I'd be really grateful for those. And I cannot wait to see you on the next video, guys. And until next time, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go on 3.